The fate of the Steelers season is in Mason Rudolph's hands again. If you would have told me back in 2023 that 2 years later, Mason Rudolph would be the man that needs to save the season again, I would have told you were crazy, especially if you told me following that season when Mason departed Pittsburgh and went to Tennessee. Do you remember Christmas of 2023? Do you remember where you were when Mason Rudolph saved Christmas? I remember where I was. In fact, that Pittsburgh Pirates ball behind me, that's the Christmas present I got that night when Mason Rudolph was able to beat the Cincinnati Bengals in the first of what ended up being 3 consecutive victories to get the Steelers to the playoffs. Well, now he's in a similar situation. The Steelers take on the Chicago Bears this Sunday at 1 p.m. Starting quarterback Aaron Rodgers, well, he's trying to play, but the odds are stacked against him. He didn't practice on Wednesday. He's trying to practice on Thursday. He has a fractured left wrist. It doesn't feel like he's going to play. Now, he might. His status is up in the air. There's a chance that he braves it one last time because it's his last chance to take on a team that he's enjoyed playing against. It's like Ben versus the Browns. Rodgers versus the Bears is a tale as old as time. Aaron Rodgers just wins those matchups. And considering how important it is for the Steelers season as a whole, you'd imagine that Aaron Rodgers wants to take part in this week's game. But again, the odds are more in favor of Mason Rudolph being the guy behind center than Aaron Rodgers on Sunday. If I'm wrong, I'll be happy to be wrong because I'd love to see Aaron Rodgers go into Soldier Field one last time and show him who's their daddy. But at the same time, with reality right in front of us, it looks like it's Mason Rudolph's job at the moment. You look at what he did last week, okay. It's not all signs pointing to negativity here. Rudolph went 12 of 16 for 127 yards and a touchdown pass against the Cincinnati Bengals. He did that on 2 drives. That's the thing. You look at those numbers and you're like, well, against one of the worst defenses in the NFL, that makes sense. But the fact that he was able to, on 2 drives, 1, lead the team down and score a field goal. 2, lead the team down, score a touchdown. Points on both drives for him. It's a good sign. Now, the Chicago Bears are a better team. They certainly have a better defense. So is he going to be able to do that when that team also has a week to prepare for Mason Rudolph? That remains to be seen. But if Rudolph goes, it's deja vu. Because this isn't just a middle of the season matchup. I liken it to what he had to do in 2023 when he had to win every single game or the Steelers season was over. If they would have lost one of those 3 that Mason Rudolph started, the season would have been over. They would not have made the playoffs. 2 years later, it is earlier in the season, but they're in a very, very similar position. As of right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers at 6-4 hold a meager 1-game lead in the AFC North. And that's something that a lot of us have been talking about. Well, the Baltimore Ravens are coming. They're hot on the Steelers' heels. And if they come back, maybe they just take the AFC North. The only problem is 5-5 right now is not a playoff team. So not only are the Steelers 1 game up for the AFC North lead, they are 1 game ahead of not being in a playoff spot. For a team that started 4-1, that is an unfathomable position to be 6-4 and be only 1 game up on the last team out of the playoffs. Not only that, it is a very formidable opponent. While the Chicago Bears over the past couple of seasons have not been formidable, they are in fact exactly that this season in their first year under Ben Johnson. Caleb Williams is playing much better. The run game has been much better, and you're going into their field. So this is not going to be a walk in the park for Mason Rudolph. This is a tough matchup. This is a tough draw for the Steelers' backup quarterback and his first start this entire season. Meanwhile, the Ravens have the Jets. And I could go into detail about how that's not good news for the Steelers. Even though Lamar Jackson didn't practice on Wednesday, it's still not good news for the Steelers because the New York Jets are starting Tyrod Taylor, and they are well on their way to getting, if not the first, a top 3 pick in the 2026 NFL draft in Pittsburgh. So the Ravens have a favorable matchup. The Steelers, however, have a tough matchup, potentially a backup quarterback. So once again, you might not think so, but the way I look at this is a do or die game for the Steelers season. If they lose this game, to me, it's more likely they miss the playoffs than they make the playoffs. This is a turning point for the Steelers, and they might have to turn that over to Mason Rudolph. Just like they did in 2023, just like they did, in that playoff game against Buffalo, the fate of their season rests in Mason Rudolph's hands. Not just because of the fact that if they can't get the job done on Sunday, the Ravens have a favorable matchup and they can tie things up in the AFC North, but because of what comes after this week. Because even if Aaron Rodgers is good to go after this Sunday, if Mason comes in and loses, but it's fine because Aaron's back the next week, the Steelers host the Buffalo Bills. And while they don't look unbeatable, they're looking a little bit stronger than the Pittsburgh Steelers have looked over the past couple of weeks. That's a tough matchup for the Steelers. Meanwhile, the Baltimore Ravens will have the Cincinnati Bengals. And while, yes, Joe Burrow might be back, that's still the Cincinnati Bengals, that a team in the Steelers that is struggling beat by 22 points because they're playing that poorly on defense. That's who the Ravens face. And then after that, it's Ravens-Steelers. So if Mason Rudolph doesn't get the job done this weekend, if he isn't able to rekindle that fire from 2023 where he saved the season, the Steelers could realistically be looking at a 2-game deficit in the AFC North with 4 games to go. And who knows where they're going to be sitting in the wild card race if that is to happen. This is a massive, massive game for the Steelers. And it might come down to, for the second time in 3 years, it might come down to whether or not Mason Rudolph could be a hero. He did it in 2023. There's reason to believe that he might be able to do it again in 2025. And for the Steelers' sake, I hope he does. That's it for this one. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. Remember, if you enjoy this content, to like, share, and subscribe to my channel at Nick Belsky. But that's going to do it. We'll see you guys next time.